Thank you for your patience. We are now moving to general public comment for items that are not on today's agenda. We have
and reported racist flaws in.
Thank you. Next up, Barbara Parmet. Thank you for your patience. We are now moving to
or bring our community together, but the
topic they will never talk about. Number Indigenous, Rwanda.
I want to second the comments that the lady before me just made. And I note that it's Native American Month, and we want to fight racism against Native Americans. And we want to empower Black students, all students, but we want to empower Black students and Black achievement. So let's not empower racism against Arabs, Palestinians, and Muslims. And that's what this collaborative is about, the one that's being mentioned tonight. And you should have a handout about it before we leave tonight. So in the interest of getting through this evening, I will end here.
Thank you. Next, we have Sarah Bazan, followed by Janet Price, followed by Carolina Bate.
Hi, good evening. Thank
Welcome.
you for all of your work and all of your service. I'm also deeply concerned about SB 1277 and echo the previous extreme power that.
Followed by Carolina Bate, followed by Brian Campbell. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much, board and everyone who's here tonight. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Good News Club. I think that the Good News Club on campuses are valuable to children because of the good things they teach and how they encourage children to live their lives. And I think it kind of goes along with what we're saying, that in these clubs, all children are welcomed, they're loved, it's a safe space, and they can be together and build relationships. I was a participant in the Good News Club when I was very young. I made a decision during a Good News Club meeting, which has made a profound impact on my life. Because of that decision I made 60 years ago, I've had a very good and successful life. I didn't get into drugs nor alcohol and drinking, which was very popular among my peers in the wild 1960s and early 70s. I have a good marriage that have lasted 41 years and will continue to last until death do us part. We have raised our family on the same principles that are taught in the Good News Clubs, and we have 3 children who are productive adults and are contributing to our society. I don't want to give the wrong impression. My life has not been perfect. I've had my ups and downs and made my mistakes, had my challenges, but God has been good to me, and I believe that it is because I have followed the principles and morals that were taught in the Good News Clubs. These clubs are valuable for children. They're fun. They teach good values and morals. These clubs should have equal access to classrooms and space in our public schools, just the same as any other club. So please consider keeping these clubs on the campuses of our Santa Barbara School District.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Carolina Bate, followed by Brian Campbell, followed by Crystal Lee. Welcome.
Thank you. Why is it important to continue the Good News Clubs to help students study the Bible? Because as adults, we know how challenging life can be, with times of sorrow and stress, or when we feel discouraged, or are faced with a difficult decision. The gospel message of Christ is helpful during these moments in our lives. Listen as the beauty of this psalm speaks for itself, providing comfort and consolation from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Ms. Abate, I need to just interrupt you on that. If it's really keeping it to the Good News Club that you want them to be a part of that, if you could stay there and not get beyond those pieces with the scripture, if you could just do that, please.
I
understand that, but we also
the point. I believe that studying the Bible is very valuable, and I brought actual content from the Bible to prove to you the point of the value of studying the Bible and the beauty of the Psalms and how it brings peace and comfort.
I understand
it's
it, but
it's part of the evidence of my presentation.
Just with regards to you're speaking to the importance of bringing or wanting to have the Freedom to Have the Good News Club be a part of our programs with regards to that. So if we could just keep it that and where I want to keep that, not bringing scripture into it, if at all possible.
I'd like the clock to be reset, please, so that I can begin my presentation completely. And
If your
all of it.
presentation is going to continue to include the scripture, is it going to conclude?
yes, it is. It's the evidence
Then-
for my presentation. I'm providing real world evidence to support my points.
This is a public comment that's within our jurisdiction, which is with regards to, and I'll just make my point here. With regards to what's in the jurisdiction. What's in the jurisdiction is you're asking for the Good News Club to be a part of the programs that's within the
Yes, and
district. And that is getting into the scripture and coding that is getting beyond that jurisdiction.
This, at the public comment podium, there's freedom of speech.
And
I've
within
said
the
nothing that's
within the
inappropriate or wrong.
I'm not saying it's inappropriate.
The
I'm just saying
decision-
within the jurisdiction. So if you could conclude your comments.
I would like the clock to be reset so that I can complete my presentation.
Listen, look, hold on. You're not at the podium and you're not had asked. I'm speaking to the speaker here with regards to this. So again, as a participant,
I'm going to go ahead and stop there. It goes on for quite a while, and then there are other items that take place. But what you can't see in the meeting also, because I'm not in that room, I'm in the overflow room. I can hear what's going on. I can see on a monitor. But what takes place is Wendy's doing her best to keep the meeting from going off the rails. When she starts reciting the 23rd Psalm, for the most part, the whole overflow room and many of the people inside the main room start reciting the 23rd Psalm with her. So, it just kind of floods the whole meeting. And then, there are other interruptions. I'm sitting back there. I didn't realize who I was sitting with, but I was sitting in the midst of a crowd of Christian nationalists who start vocalizing their complaints, their dissent. They say some pretty insulting things about Wendy, who's trying to lead the meeting. And so in the midst of all of this, I have to, first of all, applaud the school board personnel for managing the meeting. But it becomes quite argumentative on the part of the people who are trying to advance the Good News Club on local campuses. So the thing that came to mind to bring us back to today's theme, Jesus was asked, what's the most important commandment in the law of Moses? And he says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind. That's the first and greatest commandment. But the second one, he says, is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. And this is the position we are in. We are in a position where there is some irrational clinging to political positions that are have brought people to the silencing of conscience, and an unwillingness to hear. Jesus says to love God, which is pointing us to the source of all of our blessings throughout the course of our life, and equally our neighbor. And I wanted to take this time, these last moments here, to encourage everybody. I know you're lovers, but I want to encourage you to love effusively, to love the people in your world, to love your employees, your supervisor, your clients, your tech support person, to love yourself effusively more than ever. Love your dear ones. It's never been our assignment to save the empire, but it is our job to save ourselves and to save each other, to save souls. I want to encourage you to be there for people to hold people, to listen to people, to love, because love will shut down fear. And the way that love does this is it centers us instead of me. We have been instructed to be hard on systems, but soft on people. So I want to encourage all of us to keep an eye out for those who feel alone, for those who can't pay their utilities or never eat out or are fighting sickness, those who feel abandoned, maybe by their own families, those battling depression. One of the things that sociologists call our attention to is the disappearance of third spaces. Third spaces meaning, the first two spaces, you have home and you have work. Third spaces are evaporating, like churches are closing. We need places that keep us from living in silos, alienated from one another. And that's what this is. That's what we are about here. But not everybody has a third space. And so they're coming to conclusions and rationales and ways of living and being where they're influenced by media and social media. What's going on in the country is happening in our municipalities, in our counties, in our cities. And even if it's not front and center all the time, we are living in the midst of conflict. We're living in the midst of conflict and an unwillingness to hear, an unwillingness to listen. My prayer is that our hearts would be open to a deepening, a transformation that takes us deeper than we've been, than we've thought and behaved. So, that's the challenge that we're dealing with in this moment. We have our vice principal, and we have our blind jet skier.
Wow, I think I want to be the blind jet skier.
It's a good time. You got me a little off for now. Barbara, do you have anything?
No, I just was fascinated because I had not seen that video of the board. I've been to so many board meetings, and most of them are pretty boring. And I've also know that there's actually a group of Christian nationalists that make their way to board meetings all over California. So I don't know if those were truly local people or not, which I thought was kind of interesting. Because I've definitely been to the board meetings at Lompoc Unified as well. I was also, this is on a side note, but just wondering the board policy. I mean, she had the 90 minutes. I'm not sure if she was allowed to say that or not. Just a question.
The 90 seconds, yeah.
I'm sorry, that's 90 seconds.
Definitely went way over the 90 seconds, as did several people. In fact, most of the people who came after her. You can find this online if you went on YouTube.
Okay.
I'm so sorry that everything was so fragmented here today, but I hope something of value came through.
Well, I was just so encouraged by all the people speaking on Gaza and Palestine. So that was really uplifting for me personally. And just what you said about being hard on systems and soft on people. I think if there's one huge takeaway, I mean, that's kind of it. I think that's Matt, do you want to speak?
Yeah, if anybody wants to get involved and be aware of those meetings, JVP Jewish Voice for Peace, and then also Surge, showing up for racial justice, are two places that you can get plugged in to stay aware of those two particular types of meetings. They're always looking for support in the community. I think something that I would like to kind of connecting to David's kind of closing thoughts is the difference between reaction and response. And in these times, I guess I see that the perfect love driving out fear. Fear kind of comes, I think, that reactive place, which is totally acceptable. There's no judgment on reaction. We all react. We all do things. But I think moving as much as we can towards that towards that response stance. Like responding has a level of practice with it, a level of anticipation, a level of journeyman, if you will. And a few weeks back, I brought up the when we were in person, we were talking about the book of Daniel. I brought up, James Lawson and John Lewis and Donna Nash, Debbie Nash, Donna Nash,
Diane Nash.
Diane Nash. Thank you. In Nashville and the sit-ins, and how they would practice weekly what they would do in their actions. And I think that they're building that response muscle. And so for us, like, to anticipate these things and to be able to build that muscle and engage with that perfect love. So, and what that would look like, how do we want to respond? So that's kind of what I hear in the message of, like, how do we still stand in love in these moments? So just open it up to conversation. I know this is probably maybe a little jarring for some folks here, and there's maybe some folks here that maybe have been at these meetings and engaged these folks and spoken. And so I'd like to hear from a range of people that maybe have been at these, but also maybe this is new and shocking to some. So
Bonnie has her hand raised. Bonnie?
Hi. Yesterday, I think this is a really good example of what's going on. I live in your state and I'm on Hope. So, and as I was leaving up my complex, I heard all this horn honking. Just, it was obnoxious as hell. And as I went up State Street, I saw, and they were going through the Loretto Plaza, and Loretto Plaza area, and just honking the crud out of everything, and it was awful. And I got up to State Street, and what it was about 8 trucks, pickup trucks, and they had these big banners of Trump's just gonna be our saviors, all this political stuff. And I was furious at the situation. I thought, he's already won. What's your point? And I think, and I have a hard trouble having love towards these people, love my neighbor and stuff. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I won't kill them, but I don't love them. So I think that's everybody. I think that's a real sore spot with everybody. But once a politician's won, they need to get on with their work. And all these other, now the politician wasn't there himself, but it was all these followers, and it's really annoying. And we're going to hear more of it too. But I think also about this meeting, and I've never been to a board meeting here in this town. I feel bad for the parents and everybody that is not taught about lost the word, acceptance of everybody. We ought to have you need to accept everybody. So thank you.
thank you, Bunny.
Mhm.
Julia?
Hey, I thank you, Pastor, for sharing that. And I love what Matt just shared, and I just wanted to share my reaction. Like, we're listening, and it was very powerful. And I'm learning, I didn't know about these things. And then the woman came and started talking about that Good News Club. And my reaction to that, my entire mood changed, right? It was like a visceral reaction in my gut. And she wasn't even finished talking. And it was like a total, are you fucking, excuse my French. Are you serious right now, lady? Like, that is your white privilege talking, okay? That's what that is. So, oh my goodness. And I don't say things like that. You know what I'm saying? That's not a way that I would normally respond, but that blew my mind, that whole share.
Yeah.
Like, especially after all the other shares that came before it, you're up here talking about, you know, I went to the Good News Club. And so my brothers and sisters and we never did drugs and alcohol. And then we joined the marching band and we went to college and we got good jobs. And, we live in a nice house with a white picket fence. Yeah. Not because you went to the Good News Club, lady. You know what I'm saying? Because you was born into it. I mean, like, come on, man. And so how do I mean, like, look, how do you say? My blood pressure's up. You know what I'm saying? I have agita. How do I, Matt said, I need to practice a different response. Practicing sobriety helps me do that because I cannot afford to get riled up. Do you know what I'm saying? I can't afford to get riled up because back in the day, my response to that might be, I need a drink to calm down. Nowadays, you see the people are drinking on the air. You know what I'm saying? They're having a glass on TV just because everybody needs a shot nowadays, but I can't afford to go there.
Don't go there. That's right.
Yeah.
I need to practice the love response. It is very hard to do that. And they say, if you practice patience, God will give you opportunities to practice.
That's right.
So I appreciate this. I appreciate the lessons, the constant repetition that we need to respond a different way. We need to practice that as an instinctual response instead of responding this way, because all it does is upset me. It doesn't change that woman. She's still, she is. And meanwhile, I'm upset about it, So thank you.
And we want you to know we practice those responses in community, in safe spaces where those happen, and we can support one another and make sure that the care is there, so that when they do come up, we are resourced. So I think Barb mentioned on the outset that they go up and down California. Locally, there are some organizations that you need to watch out for. One particularly is called Fair Education. Don't get caught by the name. It's nothing but it's not that at all. And then there's one called Collab or Eco Collab. Or is it Eco Collab? I think it's just Collab, but they're kind of based out of North County, more Santa Maria, Lompoc, and they do some pretty and then there's the Moms for Liberty has a really strong participation here on the Central Coast as well. So there's a couple organizations you need to watch out for.
Hey, Michael has his hand raised.
I don't have anything profound to say, but I wanted to hug you, Sister Julia. And as I'm saying this, I'm laughing, but I wanted to say, just consider the source, Julia. Consider the source. But boy, that's the advice I should have been giving myself for these past couple of weeks since the election. And if I can just detach and consider the source, and not that we're better than they are, just they're different, but I just wanted to love my own old manness right now by saying that when I was hearing this news about this legislation that Newsom's endorsed, back in the day, a long time ago, when I was doing staff development and teaching high school, the ADL was one of our wonderful groups that did really provide, I don't like the word tolerance, but to provide fairness training. And now, gosh, I just hearken back to Bob Dylan, the times they are changing, and just consider it's blowing in the wind. That's all. Thanks. But thanks, Julia. I can really relate.
Thank you, Michael. Just again, for folks that maybe are not aware of this 1577 or 1277 bill that was passed by Gavin Newsom. JVP again, Jewish Voice for Peace and Surge have both been raising awareness about this for the past I'd say 3 or 4 weeks. And you know how it's been getting pushed through and kind of the risk of it and how the ADL has been directly a part of it and what their path to implementing this is. And so please get engaged with Jewish Voice for Peace and get on their email list. It's very easy. Just go to Jewish Voice for Peace Santa Barbara or Surge Showing Up for Racial Justice Santa Barbara. And they just send out weekly or JVP's more monthly updates of what's going on, how things are moving and progressing. So those are great ways to stay informed about these things.
Thanks, Matt. Linnea had her hands up. Linnea?
Okay, yeah, hi. Thank you, Pastor Moore. I'm curious, two questions. I'm curious about what things were like in your standing room only when they were talking about the genocide. And the second question is, I've been retired from high school education since 2012, and we were still honoring separation of church and state back then. So this is majorly messed up that we can't keep those realms separately. Any testimony or witness that I did as a teacher came from the outpouring of my heart, not by trying to wedge scripture, into everything and force my way in, with my beliefs. So, whatever happened to that separation? If anybody has any perspective on that.
Well, I'll say this before Clint comes on just to respond. In the overflow room, surrounded with folks that when the anti-Zionists were making their presentations, there were quite a few groans. So clearly, I didn't know that they were. First of all, I didn't know it was a room full of "quote unquote" Christians. I didn't realize that. I just, I knew they were white. That part I picked up on pretty easily, but I didn't know that they were Christians. But then, when it bore out the fact that they are Christian Zionists because they did not like what was being presented up to that point. All right, so sorry for taking so long, Clint. You're.
You know what? So I've had to share a couple things. The message of being love and putting love out into the world is so important. And it is difficult. And imagine being okay. So I feel sick to my stomach just like I did when I found out the vote. I feel sick to my stomach because here's the thing. Imagine looking like I do. Those people think I'm one of them. I have those people come up to me and start talking in the most ridiculous. Look what we did! Yeah, it's like I feel like I live in Calabama or some shit. And you know what? Those people that are blaring their Trump, thank God they pointed themselves out to you. You know what? You don't have to worry about where they stand. You know it. God bless them. I still love them. I've lost a number of people, acquaintances, I'll call them that, within my realm over this last couple of years with everything that's gone on with Trump and everything. A couple of them being pastors. I called them out on Facebook, and guess what? If they don't like it, God don't like ugly, and He ain't too fond of pretty either, And so I'm going to stand by what I believe in, and that's what I will do. But I believe in love, and I believe in loving your neighbor. There was one of the people that I know I'm 50 years old, but I almost knocked his head off of his shoulders, about a month and a half ago because he commented on something on my Facebook, not to me, but to a 60-year-old woman. And he was being just the asshole that I expect from a Trump follower. And he was disrespecting her on my Facebook page. I tried to do the right thing because I'm in recovery. And so I just blocked him, unfriended him, and ignored him. Well, I got an opportunity to practice my recovery this Wednesday when I went to an AA meeting, and there he was. And then the meeting just so happened to be about making amends. And then about the amends being more for us than it is for them. It isn't writing what they've done. It isn't saying they're okay, but you know what it is? It's clearing up our side of the street and saying, I'm a better person than that, and I'm gonna go make it right. And so that's what I did. I went up to him and said, you know what? I need to apologize about how I behaved. Now, the old me would have said that's weak. But guess what? That's that white Christian nationalist thinking that that's weak. No, the real strength comes in being a human, being kind, saying I was wrong, you're human, you know what? Whatever. And so God bless, you know what? God bless this community where we can actually come here and feel that same urge to do right, even in the midst of everything going wrong.
Clint, you're reminding me of a beautiful book. The title of the book is actually called Conflict is Not Abuse. And one of the points that the author makes is that oftentimes we leave conflicts because we relate to conflict in the way of abuse, and conflict is conflict. And we have the courage and the love in us to stand in conflict with who we are. And so oftentimes our brains correlate a conflict as a trauma and correlate it to abuse. And so it's a really beautiful, radical book by an activist that I really appreciate. So thanks for reminding me of that book.
Thank you.
We have 2 more hands up, and I'm sorry, I personally need to leave at 11:30, but we can hear from Brigitte and then Scott before we have communion.
I just wanted to respond to Nia that I think the reason that things have changed and the reason why we have conflict with other people is that they're afraid. They're afraid, and bullies are afraid, and people who start yelling and posting things. I think they're all afraid, and I think that for me anyway, looking at those people as fearful and having a problem with coping skills makes me more understanding.
Scott. Scott.
Yeah, okay. So I'll share some irony. I go to Santa Maria City Council meetings periodically, usually to give public comment. And those meetings start with a religious invocation. And then when a Catholic priest gave one. And I had to admit, I'm a big First Amendment person, and I'm a big separate church and state person. But if that woman who first shared the good news, the one who started doing scripture, if she had read the Sermon on the Mount, I probably would have been happy.
Yeah.
So,
it's very funny, me too.
Yeah.
I like the way the public hearing started out, and it was on Gaza. And just had to say this, that my experience through the whole election, maybe I come from a different place, I'm not sure, from some of us, but I don't think the Democratic Party, which I've been a part of all my adult life, really stood in solidarity with the people of Gaza for this election, starting with Kamala. Of course, the other side, the Republican Party, don't even get me started, and Donald Trump. But I feel like that was a great omission on millions of people. So there's that. And maybe that's just enough to be said. And I will say this too. I do have concern mostly. I know I'm a white male, so I think a lot of things Trump is about, some of the cabinet members he's elected or appointed are about. But I fear most for the immigrants because I'm surrounded by them here in Santa Maria, and I help serve them. So many, like 70% are undocumented among our field workers and stuff. And I'm not sure where that's going to go. But then I remember Barack Obama set a record in the deportation. So I think it was great, that idea about challenging the systems and being soft on people. I think that's right on in that regard. Anyway, I'll end it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Michael
Yeah.
has his hand up too.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. I'll try to be very quick. Three quick things. I'm not sure, maybe Barb Parmet said it, I'm not sure, or maybe David, but very important in this conflict, and just Linnea and I personally are getting stung with this, but in the conflict over the Gaza genocide, it was mentioned here and it's very important. There's a false equation between saying someone is anti-Semitic and someone's anti-Zionist. And it's a very important distinction. And our own Jewish family members who we're having conflict with, that's the point they start with. And it's not fair. But just point out when you're hearing these arguments that if the position is that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, then you can't talk. You can't work it out. You've got to get through that one distinction right there. Second thing, real quickly, David, thank you for talking about third spaces. I'm not familiar with all that, and I hope in the future you can talk to us more about third spaces. That seemed very positive. And the third thing, Matt, you mentioned Surge Santa Barbara. The Surge Ventura County here that Linnea and I are part of is getting reactivated again. Probably a lot from the election, but I think it's going to be a time conflict, maybe with our service in person next week. But I'll ask Linnea to post the time. Next Sunday, Maddie Stevenson from our Surge VC is doing a Zoom workshop on trying to deal with this whole post-election mentality and conflict. So hopefully, if you can watch the phone tree thing that we have, Linnea, if you could post on there about that. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, with the focus on how to talk with people in your family and among your friends about how to be loving within those conflicts. So I'll do that.
All right, y'all. Well, I think we're going to wrap it there.
Well,
Barbara.
before we do, was that Margie's hand up?
Oh, sorry. One more hand.
Sorry, no, that was just a thumbs up because
Oh,
I'm
okay.
grateful for hearing some of those resources.
Well, thank you all for patiently. Yes, Matt, it is time. Thank you for sticking around. We probably lost a good 10 minutes in there just pulling things together tech-wise. But we're going to wrap it up here, and Brigitta's going to lead us in a big part of third space life, and that's communion.
Well, I don't know, but from the sound of it, you're feeling a bit like I am. So I'd like everybody to just take a moment to relax and take a couple of deep breaths. Let your shoulders kind of chill. Let them just go down and relax and take a deep breath again. I'd like to pray over all of us. Dear Father in heaven, we love and praise you. Please bring your kingdom to earth and bless us and direct us, every one of us, as you would in heaven. Give us all we need today, the bread of life, the meat of your word, the fruit of the spirits, the armor of God to protect us. God, you know who we have mistreated or who we have anger against. Help us to see that person through your eyes and to give us the will and the wisdom to treat them just as we hope you will treat us when we meet you. Namely, with unreserved love and forgiveness. Thank you for sharing your Son, Jesus, to assure us of your love. When we share communion, we remember Jesus' words as he took a loaf of bread and blessed it saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." And then he took the cup, and giving thanks, he gave it to all of them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which was poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The grace of the Lord Christ, the love of God, and the communion